All right, guys, welcome back to episode 3 on Pour Over Perspectives. I have a little guest with me here. He's actually sleeping.
Yeah, I know, so cute. Our second guest, we had Milo first, and now we have
And yes, Enzo.
Enzo.
Yeah.
Well, everyone, as you guys know, last week we had a part 1 to relationships, and this week we're having a part 2. So we're just gonna start where we left off, and let's get into it. There was so much to last week's episode that we had to do a part 2 because it was just too much to cram all into one episode. You know, last week we talked about first breakup, for our first love and situationships and things like that. And now we kind of wanted to talk about current relationships and the things that we do to uphold our relationship and, why we've lasted for so long. And, let's talk about the ins and outs of it. So I know one thing very important that we mentioned in last week's episode was when starting a relationship, it's very healthy to have a conversation from the start. What do we expect from each other in our partner, and what things we want in order for this relationship to succeed? Because of course everyone has different opinions, of what they're looking for. And so that's kind of what I want to start talking about in this episode. What are things that we each do in our relationship? What was the conversation from the start that we had?
How did you and Jamie pretty much sit down and actually talk about, what outcome you guys wanted for your relationship? Mm-hmm. Before we get into that, I also want for you to give the viewers a little bit of background info on, how you and Jamie pretty much, met, got started, and what did it look like when you guys first got into a relationship to, essentially talk about the outcome that you guys wanted for your relationship.
Yeah. So, of course, as you know, and a lot of people know, I got into the relationship with Jamie very young. I was 17.
Mm-hmm. I mean, you're still very young.
No, I was 16. No, I know I'm still very young. No, I was 16. Yeah, I was 16, turning 17, and he was 17. So we were very young. I felt like I've always been ahead of my years. So when it came to relationships or, being with certain people, I've been very mature. So to now give a background, we met, well, I was actually talking to somebody at the time when we started talking. And then I dubbed him like twice. But unfortunately, we're 10
one
now,
of those
so it really
times was my fault, low-key.
Let's not talk about that.
Yeah, no.
But it was a lot of like judging from the start, and I felt like I wasn't ready for like a real committed relationship, knowing that he was so serious from being with other girls in the past. Like, he was very into love and like so serious about it that I like wasn't at all. So I was like pushed back by it. Eventually, like, I gave him tries, and we eventually got together in December of 2022. So from there, in the beginning of the relationship, it was, puppy stage. You have that puppy love. Like, you just want to be with each other all the time, and everything's all, jittery, and you guys just love each other so much. Not that we don't now, but it's just very different when you start off a relationship because, all that love is in the air,
How did that work out? You mentioned that he was kind of like intense already because he was like very
crazy
strong in terms of like, affectionate. Like, he knew what he wanted.
No, for sure. It was hard because me, growing up, not that I didn't, like, we have a very, like, loving family. Like, I always grew up with my mom being loving, but I was never the type to be so overly loving and, like, all the hugs and the kisses and, like, all this stuff. And he did. So coming from two different backgrounds in that aspect, it was hard because he was so straightforward. He's like, I want this. I want to spend the rest of my life with you. Like, I want to grow together. And I'm like, slow your roll. So it kind of threw me off, and that's why I dubbed him twice. And I kind of told him, like, you need to relax, because I wasn't ready, especially when I was with somebody previously. So it was hard for me to just jump into something new. So moving on forward, we first started off, and it was, like I said, all lovey-dovey. And of course, like I said, one of the important things that we had was that conversation. And in that conversation, you know, we knew that, not that there wasn't such thing as like high school sweethearts, but it's very rare to find that.
Nowadays, yeah, it's super
Nowadays, like, everyone is just...
No one wants to do the work anymore to maintain a relationship.
Yes, and it's very hard. And a lot of kids now, they don't have such a mature mindset like teenagers did back then. And that's why a lot of people don't last anymore. And like you said, they're not putting the work in. You know, once we sat down, everything kind of like fell into place. You know, we both mentioned that we want honesty, because a relationship without honesty is really not going to go anywhere. Definitely loyalty, of course. I mean, if we're going to be partners, of course, we're going to be loyal to each other. So that's something else. Obviously, you know, not having outside people influence our relationship. That was a big no-no, especially now in this day and age. Like, a lot of teenagers are letting like outsiders and people from the outside, or other women or other men, coming into the relationship. And so that's obviously something I didn't want. And him, you know, with women in the past, or his girlfriends in the past, like, not being faithful to him. So that's something that he was very, very worried about.
Yeah.
As well as knowing that we're still young, and not having the full-on expectation of we're gonna get married, we're gonna have kids. Yes, of course, that is the end goal. That is what we wanted. That's what we want now. But not putting the pressure onto us, thinking that we're already in our 20s and 30s when we're literally 16 and 17 years old. Like, we can't dictate the future. So that's something for sure for myself, knowing that since he was so into it, and I was, yes, into it, but I was still not so sure. Like, okay, is this actually for real? Like, is this something that we're going to pursue for the rest of our lives?
Yeah.
So that needed to definitely be on the top of my list. So, yeah, what about you?
Me and Laz actually met while I was working in the insurance office, because he also used to work there as well. And I'm not sure exactly how we started off, but I remember that it started off innocently and it turned into something right away. Like, I realized we instantly started just hanging out every single day. He would like sleep over, and in one of these nights that he had slept over, we actually started talking, like, you know what is it that you want? Like, because we need to be on the same page.
Yeah, you gotta be on the same timing.
And I remember asking him, like, hey, do you want kids? Do you want to get married? Because this is one thing, like, that I know for sure I'm not playing around about. You know, like, I was 25 at the time. Like, with me being 25, I'm already starting to think about settling down. You know, that's where we're a little bit different, because you're still young.
Of course.
But me thinking, you know, I'm 25, I need to start thinking about settling down and having stability in my life. And I asked him, like, hey, you know, do you want to get married? Do you want to have kids? And, you know, we were both on the same page with that. Yeah. And it's very similar to the same things that you kind of mentioned. Obviously, being loyal, honest. Definitely honest, because what a lot of people fail to understand is that a relationship that truly lasts, like even marriages that last 20, 30 years, the real reason why they last is because they talk about the hardest things. Everything. You know, being honest, even, you know, if you're thinking about somebody else from your past and you kind of bring it up to your partner and be like, hey, you know, like, this is kind of in the back burner and I wanted to mention it because maybe there's something in our relationship that's lacking. So that's definitely talking about the things that, you know, are even hard to talk about.
And not being afraid to open up, because you might think, oh, what if they think this way? But it's better to say it and resolve it right then and there, even if it's a long and very tough conversation, than to just have it eat you up, because that's going to be worse for your relationship in the long run.
Exactly. And I know for a fact, like, we have already had conversations that have been hard, you know, to get through, but we've had to do it in order to survive our relationship. But honestly, just being honest, being loyal, respecting one another.
Yes, for sure.
Because you don't want to be in a relationship where, you know, you feel disrespected. And in a way where, how do I say it? Someone's not making you look like a fool. Like, you're serious about someone and the other person, they're just not on the same page. So respecting, and that goes hand in hand with boundaries.
Yes,
you know?
for sure.
So there's a lot of things that, like, the list just goes on.
No, for sure. I mean, we even forgot communication. Like, even that, like, communication with everything. I mean, that goes also along with, like, being honest, because you're communicating everything.
Yeah.
But just communicating
putting pride
everything
aside, that's another thing
ego.
that we
oh yeah,
you want to definitely, like, talk to one another, even if your ego is like, nah, I want him to apologize first, or I want her to apologize first.
That is a whole other, I definitely want to get into that stuff.
Yeah.
You know, like, things that we deal with personally in a relationship, and how that's affecting a relationship.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So that's, just wait a little, and you're gonna
yeah,
we're gonna spill all that stuff to you guys.
So yeah, I just want to say, like, it was pretty much the same thing that you said. So I mean, when it comes to, even if I'm a little bit older and you're a little bit younger, it's still the same principle.
It's really the principle. I was gonna say that. I was gonna say it's really just the principle. I mean, that's, a relationship should always have that foundation.
Yeah.
From the jump.
So obviously there's not that much of a difference when it comes to, you know, when we talked about what we pretty much wanted in both of our relationships. But now I actually want to get into what you and Jamien do to kind of, like, keep your relationship alive. So for those of you that don't know, her and Jamien are going on 3 years, or did you guys already make 3 years?
No, girl.
So tell us what that looks like. How do you guys keep it going after being together for 2 years? And obviously just being around each other, you know, a lot of the times. How do you guys deal with not getting annoyed with each other?
It definitely gets frustrating, especially when, you know, we butt heads, like, a lot. And obviously, like, you want to be with your partner all the time, but a lot of the times, like, we'll be with each other and it's just constant fighting and bickering, and it's just it's honestly about the most stupidest shit. I've, like, every time it's always something stupid that it's just, it's not meaningful. And so when we're so caught up, like, in the fights and all the struggles, like, we kind of not forget the importance of the relationship, but just forget the foundation that we built from the start. And you know, now when we're so caught up in all of that, it starts to kind of, you know, the light starts to dim a little bit over time, and it gets rough because it'll be times where it's just plain, like, it's boring, it's dead. Like, when I see him, like, there's no love. I don't feel, there's
it's
no,
like the same routine.
It's the same routine over and over again, and it just feels like attraction's being lost, and this love, not that I'm losing love, but it's just dead. It's plain. So there's times where we don't even want to speak to each other. We don't even want to see each other. And even when we do, you know, we're on our phone, we're distracted. We're not, you know, actually being intimate with each other. And not being intimate as in anything sexual, just being in each other's presence and, like, truly admiring that your person is right in front of you.
Right.
So
just spending quality time.
Yeah, it's hard, you know. And before I obviously explain, like, the things that we do, I want to kind of discuss struggles, you know, to see where now we can kind of differentiate from, obviously, my struggles being in a young relationship to your struggles, you know, which, you know, you guys are much older. Well, not much older, but you know what I mean.
Right.
You know, starting a life and a family. So honestly, like, I think about the stuff we argue about, and I'm like, wait, what do we even argue about? Like, I'll be mad at him for something, and I'm like,
girl, same.
What do we even argue about that I'm mad at you for? And then I'll still be mad.
Yeah.
Well, in the beginning of our relationship, being the person that I am very for, like, helping others and helping people. You know, knowing I had the podcast Open the Lock before, you know, it was about being a self-help advocate for young teens. And so coming from that background and wanting to help others so much, coming into the relationship, you know, we all come with baggage. Like, I feel like that's everybody.
Right.
And so, at the time he was going through some stuff and dealing with problems. And so me being me, I'm going to help. That's just the type of person I am. No matter what you're going through, I'm going to be there and help you.
Right.
So not that it was asked of, but just because it's the person I am, it's in my body. Like, I'm going to do it because I care for you and I love you. So I felt that over time it was taking up so much of me, and I was letting it eat me up inside, just like constantly feeling like I have to help and like fix his problems. It kind of dragged me down, and for a long time it was a really big problem because I not that I didn't start to feel like myself, but I felt so tired and so drained because I didn't have energy to just do anything else
For yourself.
for myself, because I felt like all I was trying to do was help him, which obviously it's good to help, but not to the point where
You lose sight of
yourself. Exactly. So it started to become very unhealthy. And even now, I mean, I can still say that sometimes I try to fix situations that don't necessarily have to do anything with me, but because he is my partner, I'm gonna help him. And sometimes I still try to take over too much. So even still now, different situation. Obviously, like, the things that he's going through is not the same as before, but I still feel like I have to be the one to help. And sometimes I feel like I'm helping him too much more than I'm helping myself.
Right.
Another problem or a struggle that I saw occurring a lot was me expecting too much. I feel like with everything, or even, not even just relationship, but even with friendships, like, I expect so much out of people. And with him being my boyfriend, I obviously expected more from him, and sometimes still do, I feel like I have two love languages. Like, I mean, my love language that I love to give and receive is actually the same thing. It's words of affirmation. I definitely like encouraging people and motivating people with my words. And I felt like a lot of the time I was motivating him and, pushing him to succeed. And sometimes I felt like I wasn't getting that from him. And so, knowing that we both have two different goals in life, I was always there supporting him, with his music. He's a music artist, by the way. I was always there. I was there till like midnight, always helping him. And I, with me and podcasting and, still going to school at the time, I felt like I wasn't being pushed enough from him, which, yes, it's not his love language, but I feel like in a relationship, we should have a little bit of everything. So, I felt like I wasn't, I was expecting too much in that, as well as like gestures. I'm very big into romance, and I see on social media a lot, which is such like a toxic thing, like seeing other guys comparing your relationships is so bad. We're going to get into that a little later, but seeing things that other guys would do for their girlfriends on social media, and asking like, oh, well, why aren't you doing this? And kind of expecting him to already know to do it, but not doing it.
Yeah, but you need to communicate things like that.
Exactly. And this is why communication is so big, because when, I didn't communicate those things, I was always disappointed. And, at a specific moment, like, I would expect something, but it's like, you're not doing it. So then from there, I would be upset. I would have an attitude all day, and he would wonder why. And I just kind of have him guessing like why I'm mad.
Yeah, I'm guilty of doing the same thing. You're not the only one. I think it's very common for women. Us women think like, we want this and this and that. But it's like, we need to understand that guys don't think the way that we do.
Exactly, they don't.
Like, you literally need to point it out to them, like, this is what I want, this is what I need.
Yep.
And they're not mind readers either. We can't expect for them to just automatically know what we want, even though we think that way. Like,
exactly,
you should know what I want.
Yeah, like, it's common sense. Like, that's literally what I say all the time. I'm like, it's common sense. Like, this is things that you should already know what to do, which yes, some things are literally common sense, like you should already know, and sometimes like it's like, how do you not know that?
Yeah.
But
I was gonna say, how do you guys like work through that?
we kind of have like a check-in on how we've been feeling lately. And so if it's a day where I'm feeling just so annoyed with what he's doing, or if I'm expecting a lot from him and he's not doing it, like I will straight up tell him right then and there how I'm feeling, because I'm not going to sit here feeling like this all day and he has no idea what's going on. So something that we do to get around it is, of course, tell him what I expected from him, and he'll understand and he'll give his input whether he agrees or not. But we still, something that me and him do is that we may not agree, but we'll still come to an agreement, or
Meet in the middle.
Like, okay, I didn't agree with you in this case, or certain things like that, but we still come to a middle, and we're not leaving off the conversation, we're not mad or anything.
I wanted to actually get into, this is a very hard topic, guys, because not everybody has a good relationship with their mother-in-law. So
That's such a big topic.
I wanted to ask you, because I know from what you guys have gone through that you and his mother aren't really on the best of terms. How did that affect your relationship? And how do you guys manage to kind of not let it make such a big dent on your relationship now, because you obviously still aren't on the best terms with her,
right?
So how did it impact you in your relationship, and how do you continue to move forward with that?
Her not liking me, it kind of caused a divide between us, and me trying to kind of one up and feel like I have to constantly prove myself, to her, as if like, okay, I'm meant for your son. I'm supposed to be with him. I we help each other and things like that. So it kind of felt like it was always a competition, and me trying to show her like, okay, yes, like this is, showing her all these things that I can do for him, and all the things I can provide for him. And I knew it wasn't healthy, knowing that at the end of the day, I wasn't in the relationship for her. I was in the relationship for him. So it definitely caused a divide in that. And he would always tell me constantly, like, at the end of the day, we're in this, me and him. It's not the three of us. It's him and I. So it was hard, because in the beginning, we had that relationship, and I could always go to her for things. And, whenever we would be fighting, or, when we would have problems, like, of course, I would go to her and ask her for opinions about him and, things that are going on. And now that we don't have that, I can't do that. And I can't go to her and ask her for things or an opinion or such things like that. Even though she may have opinions about our relationship, whether she agrees with it or not, we're at the end of the day, we're still not going to allow that to cause a divide between us. And with that, boundaries need to be made at the end of the day. Knowing that I'm his girlfriend and that's his mother, there still needs to be kind of a foot in the middle to separate that and not cause any fights and, any divide between our relationship, because like I said, at the end of the day, it's both of us. So I think setting boundaries is also very important if you're going through the same thing in your relationship, or, not just with mothers-in-law, with your mother-in-law, but it could be your father-in-law, it could be friends, it could be anybody, just setting boundaries and establishing that, because at the end of the day, if this is the person you're going to spend the rest of your life with, you're going to have to step your foot down with some people that may not agree with your relationship. So from dealing with those things, a lot of the times we will constantly be kind of focused in that all the time. And from that, like I mentioned, like the relationship will die down, or it's boring, or it's like the love's just gone and there's no intimacy, there's no affection and stuff like that. So we try to do things to stay away from that. And what we do in our relationship that works for us is actually going on dates. And it sounds so simple and plain, but it's truly that. No matter what, you know how people, they'll have their anniversary like every year. We won't have the every year anniversary. We'll literally have it every month, because it shows that we made another month of commitment, which is very, to others, it may not be so hard, but to be alive for another month and to be together for another month is a whole, it's commitment. It just shows how much you want to be with somebody. And I feel like it's important for us, even if we don't actually do something or go out, but we'll even talk and we'll sit down and be like, thank you for being with me for another
just
month.
Having quality time
and appreciating. So I would definitely say dates, fun dates, dinner, movies, golfing, go-karting, picnic, just walking around, looking at murals and art and stuff like that, just so we're spending time with each other. All right, so with me going into detail with Jamie and I explain your side. What are things that, obviously now starting a family and living together, I know obviously there's a lot of stuff that goes into that, so tell us struggles, and what do you guys do to kind of manage that?
Where do I even start? I mean, it's not a lot, but it is a lot at the end of the day. Like, when you really look at it from perspective, we've had a baby, we've moved in together, like, it's just a lot.
Yeah.
But I would definitely say we have had our fair struggles of, not communicating, going through kind of like a rut in our relationship where it just felt like arguing, and kind of
so annoying,
mundane in the routine, especially when you have a baby. Now it's just not us two, it's me, him, and a small little human being. So when it comes to us like lacking communication, and I realize it, I kind of tell him, and I sit him down, and I tell him, hey babe, like, we're not communicating like we used to. And he's like, oh well, I'm sorry, because like maybe it could be my fault, because like right now he's constantly working, so sometimes when he gets home, it's like he's exhausted, and that causes us to kind of like not talk, not connect. And this is things that every relationship, I'm pretty sure, goes through.
Definitely.
So definitely when it comes to us being in a rut, not communicating, we actually sit down and talk about it, because our communication is lacking. Another thing is, when we're arguing too much, especially about dumb things, I realize that is stemming from us not connecting, us not doing anything out of our routine. Because once again, he's working, I'm pretty much at home with the baby, and we barely have time for ourselves. And I think that gets us caught up to the point where we get frustrated, not having time for ourselves and actually like
being alone and
getting out of the routine. We start to fight over dumb things. And I start to tell him, like, not that I'm always the one that's telling him things, but I'm the one who kind of notices it, because sometimes he's just like so tired.
I'm like that.
I'll tell him, hey, I feel like we should go on a date. Sometimes it'll be just like me and him, or other times, I'll tell him, hey, let's go out with the baby. Not too long ago, we actually had a breakfast on a Saturday morning, me, him, and the baby, and it felt so good to just be outside and
definitely
just soak in, the sun, and eat and talk and actually enjoy each other's presence. Yeah. Like, I feel like it's so important to just kind of stop and acknowledge and spend time with the other person, because we get so caught up in routine.
Because it's the same thing, like every week, every day. So to finally just be out of it, it kind of, you want to enjoy it, you know, because it's precious, you know, it's something that you just want to hold on for like literally ever.
Yeah. So definitely with that, the main thing that I honestly can say is that we've struggled with, like, you know, constantly being in the same routine or not communicating because we've been so mentally exhausted or drained from me taking care of the baby or him working.
Right.
Another thing is, when we have gotten into arguments, is letting our pride stay in the way of us actually fixing things.
That's a big one.
So that's been something that, like, we've had to kind of sit down and be like, hey, you know, we can't continue doing this. And I've realized that this is kind of going off topic a little bit, but I realized that I actually have brought this into the relationship myself from previous relationships, and also from,
but that's, you know, still important.
Trauma.
I mean, that's still something to be brought up, because it's something that probably is so common in relationships.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Pride and
just
ego.
not wanting to, like, apologize. So that's one thing that we've actually struggled with is, you know, if we've had an argument and I know I'm wrong, especially in the beginning.
I hate being wrong. Let me just say.
Especially in the beginning, if I was wrong, I would kind of wait until he apologized to me, knowing that I was in the wrong.
Yeah.
And, you know, that was so messed up of me to, like, wait until he apologized.
Yeah.
When I should have just put my ego and my pride aside and actually said, hey, you know what, like, I'm lacking, and, you know, I'm sorry for doing this and that.
Right.
So that's definitely something that we struggled with in the very beginning. We still kind of struggle with it a little bit, but it's not as much as before.
Right.
And, you know, he's very stubborn himself. So he has he actually would do the same thing. Like, if we would get into a very big argument and he just was so heated in the moment, he would just, like, not talk to me or just, like, walk away.
Yeah.
And not apologize.
I'm guilty of that.
And, you know, like, we realized that, look, you know, like, it's okay, we're going through this and that, but we actually have to, like, stop letting our pride get in the way, because it's not going to end well. You know?
It's not.
So we literally sit down and we talk about it, and, you know, it's normal to bump heads, but where it's not normal is that if you allow these things to continue, you know, making such an impact in your relationship and continue the same habits, I feel like it's important to actually, like, look at where you can improve as a partner.
Where you're lacking.
What can you better as a partner, and just yourself be a better person. Because I feel like when it comes to a relationship, you not only think of it like, how can this relationship benefit me, and how can I benefit in this, or, like, how can this other person benefit in the relationship, but it's also, how can I become a better person? Because at the end of the day, your partner is also supposed to help you become a better person as well.
Goals, you know, what are you doing for each other? How are you helping each other? What are you guys doing to support each other's dreams and, you know, for the future? So that's definitely something that is important, you know, in your relationship.
Yeah, so with that, I mean, it just goes again back to the main thing that is super important in any relationship is just communication and trust. Without those two things, and respect, three things, communication, trust, and respect, I feel like a relationship will not last. You have to constantly talk about the good, the bad, the ugly, and actually, like, get to the nitty gritty. You have to always keep the respect in the relationship. You know, like, never disrespect each other. I'm not only talking about, like, cheating and crap like that. I'm talking about
conversating and how you say something, because it's
And
not
the way
what
that
you
you
say, it's
speak.
what you say. It's the way you
Exactly,
speak.
the way you
I'm
speak
so
to the other
guilty of
person.
that, and I'm gonna say that because it's the truth.
Yeah, like you don't want
I
to
have a rough time speaking nicely, especially when I'm trying to get my
nice.
point across. Especially like when I'm trying to get my point across, and like I'm so passionate about what I'm gonna say, but it's like I like have to say it in like a mean way for like him to understand it, which is not good.
Yeah.
It's not. I'm not proud of it, but it's
No,
something
we
that
need to work on that, Brie.
no, I know we do. We have a lot of things that we need to work on. But that I feel like that's what is so beautiful about it, because we're both so, we're both different people, and even though we have things that we are both going through, and not only going through but problems that we both have, we're here to kind of help each other do that successfully. And I feel like that's what the journey is all about,
Yeah, for sure. Enough about the boring stuff in a relationship. Let's actually get into some juicy questions, which I'm pretty sure our audience wants to know.
Oh yeah.
So, I have the first question here, and I'm going to ask you, and then you can ask me, okay?
Yep.
So, when you and Jamie get into an argument, do you actually sit down after the argument and talk things out? Or do you guys let each other cool off and then come back to each other and talk when things are cooled down?
That's a really good question. Well, it's both. And I only say that because we have two different opinions about that. He's more of the, I don't want to talk, no communication, not talking to me, all of that. And I am the, no, we need to talk right now. Because if we don't, I'm going to go insane. I'm going to blow up your phone. Yeah. It gets so bad because he won't want to talk. And I'm blowing up his phone. I'm like, we need to talk now, because if I don't talk, I'm going to literally go insane. But he feels like if he talks, he's going to go insane.
Right.
So it's very hard because sometimes we won't meet in the middle, and it'll get to that point where it does become toxic. As in other times, he will allow himself to talk right then and there. And sometimes I kind of have to follow along with what he wants and cool off too, which I do think sometimes it's very important to cool off, especially when it's getting heated very quickly and it's escalating very fast.
Right.
I do believe we used to have this thing where when we would fight, we would agree to no contact for a good 10 minutes, just not be on the phone, nothing. If it was an argument over the phone, or if we were together in person, we wouldn't be with each other for like 5 to 10 minutes, and then we would come to each other. Even if we don't feel 100% fully prepared to talk, we still have to respect that this is what your partner wants. So sometimes when I didn't want to, I would wait. And when he didn't want to, sometimes he would have to just calm himself down fast and talk. So it's one of three ways. I mean,
sorry to interrupt.
No, it's okay.
How did you guys actually manage that when he was living in New York temporarily? Because I remember that
the long
he was
distance.
over there for like about, 6 months?
6 months, yeah.
How did you guys manage that when he was over there and you were over here?
When he was living over there, obviously when we knew we were going to be a long distance, we told ourselves that we were going to try, obviously. But we didn't realize that when it came to arguments, how hard it would be. Because when you know that your partner's, only a 20-minute drive, or knowing that they're in the living room or something, like it's different because you know that you can talk about it right then and there. Mm-hmm. But knowing that your partner is 1,000 miles away, it's hard because you tend to kind of not care. And it sounds bad because over time you're like, oh, well, why does it matter? Like, he's 1,000 miles away. Like, who even cares? Like, whatever. I'm just going to not talk to him and then we'll be fine. Which that's how our mentality was when we would get into arguments. And it got really, really toxic because we wouldn't talk for days and we would just be very rude to each other for days at a time, and we wouldn't want to resolve the issue. So we would have a conversation, or we'll have an argument, and we won't even have a conversation about the argument until days later. So we had built up animosity towards each other, built up anger and frustration, and we would not speak to each other because it's like, okay, well, you're already far, so why am I going to speak to you? Well, obviously, like, you weren't long distance, but when you get into, you know, arguments with Laz, like, how does that work with you guys? Do you want to sit down and talk? Do you want to just not talk to him at all?
So when we would get into arguments, definitely in the very beginning, I would be the type to like not want to talk about it because it's something that was a very bad habit in my previous relationship that just kind of got transferred into this relationship. So I kind of just would brush things off. But once I started realizing that I had to break that bad habit, I would want to fix things right then and there. And the thing about that is that I can be very level-headed up until the point where I'm not.
Yeah.
And then, like, Laz is the type of person that he's very patient. He's very laid back, very lax guy. But once you get him out of his character, it's like...
all hell broke loose.
Yeah. That's the thing about the quiet ones.
Yeah, they say that.
Like, it's so crazy to see him blow up because when he does, it's like, it's so out of his character.
Yeah.
But I guess it depends on the type of argument that we have and if it gets to a very, you know, how do I say it? If it's a very heated argument, definitely we kind of like give each other space to back off.
Yeah.
Because you're in that headspace where you're very emotional and you're not thinking logically.
You're gonna say whatever.
You're gonna say whatever comes to mind. You know, and
to hurt them.
Yeah, and that has happened. I'm not gonna lie. Like, it has happened a few times. You know, and obviously we have sat down and apologized and been like, hey, that was so out of character.
Yeah, for sure.
So it definitely depends on the kind of argument that we have, but you know, sometimes we actually take time to come back to each other, have some space, cool off, and then we talk. But then other times it's like, okay, it's so dumb. Let's just talk about it. Yeah. Get to the root cause of it. And that's it. Let's squash the beef.
Exactly. Because there's no point of just arguing for no reason.
And then sometimes I don't even know why I'm arguing.
With social media now being on everyone's phone these days, do you feel like it has caused a bad thing in your relationship? Do you feel like it has caused something negative, or you've grabbed something negative from social media?
I want to say at first, but now like it doesn't really faze me. So just to kind of give a little background, Laz is a very private person. And you know, he doesn't really post much as opposed to me, where I post constantly and I'm kind of more involved in social media. At first it was like, well, why aren't you posting me? Why aren't you showing us off? And it was kind of toxic because I was kind of basing that on the importance of our relationship. Like, our relationship isn't important unless you post us.
Yeah, I am guilty.
So at first it was definitely something that I would kind of like stress over and we would get into little disagreements about. Yeah. But after a while, I'm like, you know what? Like, privacy is just way better. You not posting me or posting me doesn't really determine the seriousness of our relationship. Like, we know what goes on between us. No one else has to know.
Exactly.
And that's something, that's something that I honestly learned from him because, you know, not everything is for the world to see.
I agree.
You know?
I definitely agree with that.
When it comes to that, honestly, like, social media doesn't really faze me anymore. I post him, he doesn't really post me, but I don't really care about it.
Yeah, you know? I mean, at the end of the day, like, it'll be different if he was a social media person and he wasn't posting you. Then that's it's like, okay, you do social media, but you're not posting me, or I'll mention you and you're not, and then you don't repost it or whatever. So I get in the beginning why, you know, it was phasing you, but knowing that he doesn't do social media whatsoever, it's like, I understand that for sure.
Yeah, like he posts once a year. So like
Literally.
honestly, if you don't know him,
Yeah.
like you don't even know what he's up to.
Yeah, it's true. It's very true.
But
That's funny.
obviously, like when it comes to that, our relationship is just like plain and simple. Like we don't really let social media influence our relationship. So how does social media, if it does, influence your relationship?
Oh, it definitely has, because again, like social media is so fake. And I say that because I'm guilty of it. I will post something on social media all lovey-dovey with Jamie and knowing like we just had the worst argument of our life like an hour ago. So it's like I'm guilty of it, and I used to be fooled from it from others. Sometimes I still can now. Like I'll be like, oh well, this guy did this for this girl. Like why can't you do that? Or, you know, this guy's posting this girlfriend. Like why can't you do that as much? Because before he would post me a lot, and now it's just like nah. And I would be like, oh well, why don't you do it a lot anymore? Or certain things like that. So it would get to me a lot. I would say definitely in the beginning. I feel like also confidence and like being secure about yourself has to do with it a lot. I feel like I can get very insecure at times, and I'll be upset like, why isn't he doing these big things that other guys are doing for their women on social media? And I'll get upset. And you know, especially when I see like another couple on social media and I'm like, oh well, I wish our relationship was like this. But it's like, you don't even know what's going on in their relationship. It could be the same thing where they just probably had the worst argument a week ago, yesterday, an hour ago, and they're just posting all lovey-dovey.
And they can be in a very toxic relationship, and you just never know.
You never know. So I can say it has. It can still be ongoing now, but it's we're working on it. It's, you know, it's a work in progress.
This is juicy stuff, guys. Have you looked through Jamien's phone, and have you ever found something?
And oop.
And oop.
Well. Have I found something? No. I mean, I haven't, like, he hasn't done anything. So, like, I haven't found him cheating or nothing. He wouldn't even be here right now. Exactly. He wouldn't be here right now. But I have. I'm very guilty of that. Every woman has. Like, if you tell me you never looked through your man's phone, what is up with you? But I have. But we actually like have each other's Instagram on our phones. So like we're logged into each other's accounts. So we get notifications. Like who's texting, you know, one another. So for Instagram, not so much. I mean, I'll go on his account on my phone. Like I won't actually go through his because I already have his account. So that like no. But text messages, sometimes when I would just, I don't know, I feel like it was around the times where I would be very insecure about myself. I would go through his phone just because around the times where I'm insecure, you know, I feel like, oh, well, what if he's like losing interest in me? What if he thinks I'm not attractive anymore? And da-da-da-da, you know? I would definitely look through his phone, you know? I never had like a time where like, you know, my intuition tell me like, oh, look through his phone, because I've never looked through his phone and I once found something. But just to feel secure in knowing like, okay, you're for sure not doing anything.
All right.
Now that I answered that, what about you? You looked through your old man phone and found something?
No. I've never found anything, but yes, I have looked through his phone.
Yeah.
And this was in the very beginning of the relationship. I want to say a couple months in, because when we first got into the relationship, it was literally rainbows and sunshine. Like
I was thinking back and I'm like, damn.
It was such a honeymoon phase.
Yeah.
But once again, just to kind of piggyback off of what you just said, when you were feeling like a little bit insecure,
yeah,
or you had some sort of doubt of like, you know, is he still interested in me?
Yeah.
I kind of went through his stuff when I was kind of like feeling insecure. Because I remember, I'm gonna talk about one specific situation, and this is why I looked through his things. So when we first started dating, he had been talking to someone before me, and he kind of just cut this person off without explanation to that person, without giving that other person an explanation, like, you know what, like, we're done, that's it. It was kind of just like, cut this person off, this, like, no explaining what happened and why we stopped talking. So I remember when we actually started talking and we were official, this person kind of popped up and kept texting him and kept calling him.
Oh, no.
And this person kept texting him and kept calling him. And I was just like, okay, whatever. Like, I was unfazed by it because honestly, like, we were honest to each other about, you know, previous situationships and stuff like that. And, you know, he kind of told me, like, I honestly, like, don't even talk to her like that. Like, we kind of cut things off.
Yeah.
So, hold on. What was the first thing that I said? I said, so...
No, he was talking to somebody prior.
Okay, so, yeah. So, he was talking to somebody prior to dating me. And this person kind of kept coming around even when I was in the picture. And, you know, she would text him and then she would call him. And he wouldn't answer, but he would tell me, like, hey, babe, like, this person is trying to get in contact with me.
Right.
And this person did something where she sent something. I'm not going to specify what it was. And, you know, very respectfully, I had responded. I'm like, are you not getting the message? Like, he's with someone. Like, why are you...
He don't want you.
Why are you constantly trying to, like, reach out to him
when you see that he's not giving you the
when
same.
He's not responding, you know? And I said it very respectfully. I'm not here to, like, put any other girl down or anything like that or talk shit. But, you know, like, it's just common sense. If someone's not responding to your text message, like, get the hint.
Yeah.
So I kind of said something along the lines, and, you know, she kind of insinuated that there was something else going on. Like, oh, like, he was more into her than what he actually, like,
was
told
telling
me.
you. Yeah.
And so a little bit later down the line, like, I want to say a couple days to like a week or so, I kind of like started thinking about it, and I'm like, okay, well, what if there actually was?
What else?
And he was just lying to me. And so I snooped, and then I actually saw that she was kind of the Lulu.
The Lulu.
So
that's crazy.
And then, you know, I told him about it. I was like, hey, I looked at your stuff because I was kind of like feeling as if you were lying to me about the whole situation between you and this person.
Yeah.
And, you know, I kind of like looked through your stuff, but, you know, I see that obviously that wasn't the case. And I just wanted to be honest with you about it. Like, that this was going through my mind. And we sat down, we talked about it. And yeah, that was pretty much it. But it's not healthy to look, because really obviously, like, when you go into someone's phone or computer, whatever the case is, you're already going with an intent to find something. And even if it's something so small, you're going to find something.
Yeah.
So for the sake of my mental and my relationship, I just don't do that. I don't think that it's worth, you know, causing chaos. It's not healthy at all. So I agree. I don't do it.
Just don't. There's no point. If you have a question, just ask your partner straight up. And if you feel like you can't, then that's a sign. That's a sign that you shouldn't be in that relationship. So
right. All right. Well, this episode was definitely a lot to take in, but you know, we always appreciate you guys joining and watching. So
of course, we appreciate everyone for tuning in into today's episode. As well, don't forget to subscribe. Do not forget to put a thumbs up, you know, put a comment down below, any topics that you want us to touch base on. And don't forget to turn on the post notification button to be notified every episode we come out every week. And yeah, thank you so much. We hope you all enjoyed.
Join us
Bye.
next week. Bye.
Bye.